as nothing is currently on the table according to league sources. There's been no productive discussion between the Warriors and Thompson or his representatives. Talks are essentially frozen. With free agency now less than 10 days away, Thompson's exit from the only franchise he has ever known feels closer and more probable than ever before. End quote. That's the first two paragraphs from Anthony Slater's latest on The Athletic, and he is reporting that the Golden State Warriors not only haven't offered Klay Thompson a contract of the length that he wants or of the amount that he wants, they have not offered him a contract, period, and that talks are essentially frozen. Again, this one line from Anthony Slater via The Athletic: with free agency now less than 10 days away, Thompson's exit from the only franchise he has ever known feels closer and more probable than ever before. Evan, this is gigantic news for the Warriors and Klay Thompson. We were previously led to believe via past reports that the Warriors had offered Klay maybe a 2-year deal, but he was holding out for a 3-year deal, maybe a little bit more money. Evan, this makes it seem as if the Golden State Warriors, not makes it seem, the report is specifically saying the Warriors and Klay Thompson have not been negotiating at all, and the Warriors have not even offered Klay any kind of contract, let alone a 2 or 3-year contract.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there was reports that the Warriors were willing to pony up for something in the 2-year range, and then Monty Poole reported per sources that Klay's looking for a 3-year deal. So it did appear as if the issue is not necessarily just money, it was years, but this latest report from Anthony Slater makes it all very probable that Klay Thompson's not going to be back next season. And it's because neither side really wants each other. I think that's huge, especially for a player that has given as much to this organization as Klay Thompson has. The fact that Klay has obviously, according to this, what I take from it, he has not been happy with the way that the Warriors have approached his contract situation going back to last summer with the 2-year for $48 million offer that they gave him. And since that point, the relationship has seemingly eroded. And that's an issue if you're trying to keep this player. I think the Warriors want to appear like they want to keep Klay Thompson. But it does not appear to me, Mark, from this report, that the Warriors have much interest in bringing Klay Thompson back unless it's on their terms. And Klay Thompson is clearly looking to keep the ball in his court. And as a result of that, both sides are at an impasse.
It does seem that way. And I'm reading a little bit more from this Anthony Slater piece via The Athletic, and there's more notes coming out from Slater, including this most recent tweet. All signs point to the Warriors retaining Kevon Looney past his guarantee date on Monday, keeping him at $8 million for next season per sources. Always possible he could be part of an offseason trade, but an outright release is unlikely. That comes from Slater. But continuing to read this piece in The Athletic, Slater later writes, quote, part of the Warriors' calculus, it seems, is that Thompson could discover a lukewarm free agent market and eventually return at a bargain rate. So it seems as if, Evan, the Golden State Warriors, while you're right, and they've outwardly said it numerous times this offseason, more so right when the season ended as opposed to lately, but they've said time and time again, we want Klay back. Now, if they finish that sentence, it would say at the right price and for the right amount of years, but in a vacuum, yes, we'd rather have Klay on this team than not. But what the Warriors are betting on, Evan, is that the interest from around the league, not as great as maybe we previously thought. Slater says, quote, there has been no traction between Thompson and the Orlando Magic, according to league sources. Other cap space teams like the Sixers and Thunder could only theoretically be in the mix. Maybe Klay's market isn't as robust as previously thought. And while he might be frustrated and upset with the Warriors, as him unfollowing the Warriors on Instagram last week might suggest, maybe eventually, after he tests the waters, he comes crawling back and the Warriors happily sign him to a 1-year, 2-year deal for not as much money as Klay was originally hoping for. That seems to be the Warriors' ideal plan, perhaps.
Ideal plan, yes. I think it also, to me, highlights how important all these teams, since specifically the Warriors, are taking the second apron. I mean, there are a lot of things the Warriors will not be able to do if they are over. And it appears they're going to be penny pinching whoever they can, because once GP2 opts in, well, there's $9 million that's gone. They're trying to figure out, I'm sure, what to do with Chris Paul's contract. It might be more valuable just to move off of him completely and get that $30 million back. And then where does that leave you with Klay? It also does, Mark, I don't know if you're sniffing this, but it does feel like if they're going to essentially let Klay go out and dictate his own market to then eventually come back, which I think they would be open to. It's not as if they just want him gone completely. I think they just want him at their price, and they're not willing to move off of it. But it does have me sniffing a little bit. Like they're trying to acquire a big player. Like they're trying to acquire a big boy and a big salary, more importantly, because if Klay Thompson is somebody that they're not willing to say go above, $20 million, Malik Monk got around 18.5 or 19. I don't necessarily have an issue with that, but it has to mean to me that they're trying to see how that they can configure adding another piece and still staying under that second apron. All of these things are in motion and are probably difficult machinations, but to essentially just say, hey, 4-time champ, piece of our fabric of a franchise, go out and do what you got to do, test the market, have fun in free agency. We'll be here eventually when you find out that no other team is going to give you anything better than what we have to offer. That doesn't sound like Klay's a priority to me. That sounds like Klay is an ancillary piece to the bigger picture this offseason, which is they are trying to find a star. They are trying to find a secondary offensive option, a running mate for Steph, a Robin, whatever you want to call it. That, to me, is the emphasis of the Warriors this offseason, and I think that's why Klay Thompson, quote-unquote, according to this story from Slater, doesn't really fit right now. He might fit in the future, but if talks have completely frozen, that doesn't sound like a player that's a priority to me.
Yeah, you're right. It does not sound that way. And if you're just joining us, latest report from Anthony Slater of The Athletic on Klay Thompson. He says talks between Klay and the Warriors are essentially frozen per sources. There has been no offer made. It's more probable than ever he may leave the only franchise he's known, regardless of his market. That's how he wrote his tweet when he tweeted out the link to the article. In the article, he says there isn't a 1-year, 2-year, or 3-year deal on the table. That sentence from the actual article, Evan, makes it seem as if the Warriors maybe had offered him something. Maybe they offered him a 2-year deal, but he declined, and the Warriors since pulled it off the table, and that's what the 415 on the Xfinity Mobile is texting right now. Couldn't they have offered, say, a 2-year deal, which Klay declined, and no counter has been made? That could also mean no deal on the table. And yes, the way that the article is written, 415, that could very well be the reality. Maybe the Warriors offered a 2-year deal that Klay declined, and the Warriors since took it off the table entirely. However, the way Slater wrote it in the tweet where he tweeted out and promoted the article was all signs point to the Warriors, talks between Klay and the Warriors are essentially frozen. There has been no offer made. So it's not just that there's nothing on the table currently, it's that no offer has been made during this offseason period where the Warriors have exclusive rights to negotiate with their guy. He is their free agent. No one else can legally, at the moment, talk to Klay Thompson about a contract. Only the Golden State Warriors have, and according to Anthony Slater, who is as plugged in as anyone around the Golden State Warriors, Evan, he says, quote, there has been no offer made. The Warriors have had endless time to at least negotiate and work something out. There has been no offer made. You are right. If that does not say you're not our priority at this stage, then I don't know what else would.
And I also think it kind of reveals something that we've all been told or sort of felt or thought or had an inkling about, but hasn't been concretely stated, which is Joe Lacob's a businessman. Joe Lacob is willing to do whatever it takes to move the franchise forward.
To be cutthroat if he has to.
If he has to. With a 4-time champion. If he has to.
If he thinks it makes the team better, then he's probably willing to do it.
Lacob's here to win. Lacob's here to make the playoffs. Lacob's here to make NBA Finals runs. He's here to make championship runs. Now, I don't know if they can do it next season, but that's the goal, right? And if Klay Thompson is perceived by some as more or less a part of the solution than another guy, then yeah, he might be on his way out. The part that's interesting to me too, though, Mark, is that it does appear from the report that they're going to pick up Kevon Looney's $8 million contract. I don't know about you, and maybe I'm in the minority. I think that also signals they're trying to work a trade. I don't think
including Kevon
Looney. I think that's why the $8 million is valuable. I think that's why we haven't heard much about Chris Paul and the decision about his contract. The thing is, in order to kind of aggregate deals or to combine deals, you have to be below the second apron. And that's where perhaps the Klay Thompson contract comes in. Okay, so if we keep the $43 million off the books, and if we keep Klay at a certain number, well, then we can operate under the second apron, combine contracts, move pieces, and acquire something else. It just, I don't know. I'm sniffing, Mark, that there's something bigger that's on its way. And as much as Klay Thompson not being a Golden State Warrior, I don't want to belittle that. That is huge. He's been here his entire life in his career, and he has given so much to this franchise. But again, it just kind of has me thinking that Klay is not even a domino at this point. He's more just seen as a cash slot. And that's where Joe Lacob, the cutthroat businessman, to me, is starting to emerge.
Yeah. Let's go out to the phones. We're reacting to this latest report from Anthony Slater of The Athletic, reporting that there has been no offer made from the Warriors to Klay Thompson, not just a 3-year deal, as was reported that Klay wanted, not a 2-year deal, not even a 1-year deal. That is the report from Anthony Slater of The Athletic. Out to the phones we go at 888-957-9570. Up next is Austin in San Jose. What's up, Austin? You're on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, happy Saturday, Mark and Evan. How you guys doing? Listen, great report. Interesting news, not really surprising. From my standpoint, I think that the market value is really what we need to look at. So what is the market for Klay Thompson? Not what the fans here think he's worth based on nostalgia and what he's done and all that. That has nothing to do with his current value. So very curious, what is Klay's current value outside of Warrior land? I think we're about to find out. I don't think he's as good as Malik Monk. So I think that if you were looking at a baseline, I can't imagine that he'd make more money than Malik Monk right now, because I don't view him as being as valuable. The other part of it is it's not just the Klay issue either, though, man. You talked about the finances. That's a big part of this. But really, if we looked at the Warriors this year and said, okay, Klay on the team, Klay now on the team. The ensemble, what I call the ensemble, just like a band, is not very good. I mean, no matter which player you like, don't like, you want to take off the team, is the team good enough right now collectively? And I would say no. So the reality is that they're going to have to do something. I hope to God that Joe Lacob's making some moves, because if we're looking at so far, we got Peyton opting in. We've got them saying they're going to bring back Looney. I mean, come on, man. I mean, and if we're saying that everybody wants Klay Thompson back, do we really believe that team has any chance of making any noise? So, yeah, we better hope as Warrior fans that something is going on in the background, guys. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty dismal all season. But I got faith, man. I think they are working on something, Dunleavy and company, and I believe there's something coming. So I'll just listen. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Austin. You mentioned the Malik Monk contract that he just got recently from the Sacramento Kings. 4 years, about $78 million, which is just over $19 million per year on average. Is Klay worth that much, Evan, you think? $19.5 million a year. He's not getting a 4-year contract, specifically not from the Golden State Warriors, but $19.5 million per year. Worth more or less than that?
I mean, I think he's worth $20 million to somebody, and allegedly that was the range that the Orlando Magic were kind of looking at. The issue is probably years for a lot of people, because not many want to acquire a declining shooter at age 35 who is not as capable a defender as he was even a couple of years ago. I think Klay Thompson's best value is still with Golden State because of kind of the relationships and the connections he has with the team and with the franchise. But Austin mentioned something about the Warriors kind of trying to figure out where Klay fits monetarily speaking. That also, if that is the case, and I think it is, they're trying to figure out their books, but then you would imagine that there would at least be a number. Like there would be some sort of rumor of a number that the Warriors are trying to bring Klay back at, that they're thinking about, that perhaps they've floated to his agent, but there's been no contract negotiations, it seems like, since he turned down 2 for $48 last offseason.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen during the regular season. They put that on hold, put it on the back burner. Klay said, basically, I'm not talking about it. We're going to do it in the offseason. The moment that the NBA Finals end, you're allowed to start negotiating with your own players. There hasn't been an offer made, and it's been over a week. We've seen Siakam receive a max extension. We've seen Monk return to Sacramento at the full value that they could offer him. We're going to start to see this next week preceding free agency. Other teams court their own players and bring them back.
We saw a relatively big name trade, Caruso and Josh Giddey.
Teams are making moves. And again, the Warriors not even having a contract on the table or an idea or a number for Klay Thompson, I think is very telling.
How about this? And we want to hear from you guys for the next hour plus. We're with you until noon here on 95.7 The Game, reacting to this report from Anthony Slater about Klay Thompson at the Warriors have not even made an offer to Klay this offseason. So give us a call, 888-957-9570. We're also keeping an eye on our Xfinity mobile text line at the same number, 888-957-9570, and our YouTube chat as always. But this is a further piece from Anthony Slater in his report, and I can't wait for the break here in a couple minutes so we can read this thing in full. I'm just getting bits and pieces of it right now. This is another portion of the report, and I'm going to read it word for word. Thompson's best offers may end up smaller in money and shorter in years than many predicted or expected, leading some to presume that'll lead back to an inevitable reunion with the Warriors at a rate both sides are comfortable. But what follows that is incredibly interesting. Slater continues, quote, but that's not necessarily the case. Even if the Warriors eventually approach Thompson with a competitive offer, matching or exceeding the money in years, it has become increasingly conceivable, according to league sources, that Thompson will decide to leave regardless, searching for a fresh start in a different environment, detached from some of the built-up friction of the previous couple of seasons, end quote. That's Slater in The Athletic on Klay Thompson. Evan, it seems as if, even if eventually the Warriors' other plans fall short and they go back to Klay and say, all right, Klay, we'll give you 3 for $70 or whatever the number is, Klay might be frustrated enough by the Warriors now that he says, no, I'm leaving anyway.
Yeah, it's as much about the money as it is about the respect, and the two are probably tied together. So, Klay Thompson is a very prideful person, and